Hey friends, welcome back to Homestead on a Prayer. We're here today at my seed starting station again because this is going to be another seed variety video. Today we're talking all about tomatoes. So I'm going to share with you all of the tomato varieties that I'm planning to grow this year. So just like with my pepper video, there are a mix of tomato varieties that I've grown many times that I know are tried and true, and there are quite a few varieties that are brand new to me. Now, if you were with me last year, I know at the end of last year I said that this year I would be paring down my tomato varieties, and I don't know if that's exactly true. I'll have to count up how many varieties I grew last year to see if I'm growing fewer this year, but I'm thinking it's not looking good. So I promise I did mean that when I said it, but then I looked at the seed catalogs and the seed websites, and there were so many tomatoes that I just had to grow, and I promise that this is actually, I know it will be hard to believe, this is the pared down list of tomato varieties. I eliminated a lot of varieties that I decided not to grow. So I narrowed it down to this, I'm not sure, maybe 20 or so varieties, which I'm going to share with you in today's video. We are going to start with paste tomatoes. Now, one of the other goals that I set for myself this season at the end of last season was to grow more paste or sauce tomatoes for the purpose of canning. That I am sticking to. So I am planning to try out some new varieties of Roma type tomatoes this year, and basically I'm trying 3 varieties this year. We'll try them all out. I'm going to grow them side by side and see how they do. Depending on how they do, I may continue growing multiple varieties in the future, or I may just do a side-by-side comparison of these. If there's one variety that stands out and does so much better than all the others, I probably will just pare it down and only grow that one in the future. The first variety that I'm trying out this year is the Roma tomato. This is kind of one of the classic sauce or paste tomatoes. It's supposed to have excellent flavor. I have in the past grown the Martino's Roma, which I am not sure if that's the same variety or if that's kind of a spin-off of this variety. I'm not really sure. If you do know anything about that, I would love to hear about that. But I am growing this variety this year. I've heard great things about it. It's supposed to be great for preserving. Next, I am trying the 10 Fingers of Naples tomato. And this tomato just looked really interesting to me. I decided to give it a try. I was reading reviews of lots of different sauce varieties. This one was supposed to be great at producing and have great flavor, so I'm just going to give that a try and compare it to the Roma. The final variety that I'm trying out this year is the Jersey Devil tomato. Now, once again, this one is known for having really good production, really large tomatoes specifically. Now, if you've ever preserved tomatoes before, you know that having large tomatoes makes your job so much easier. You know, you need to blanch them, remove the core and the skins and the seeds, and it's just a big process. So having fewer tomatoes that are larger makes that process a lot easier. So I'm hoping that this will do really well. So those are my 3 sauce varieties. We're going to grow them all as the year goes on. I'll keep you updated as to how they all do compared to each other. So next, let's talk about cherry tomatoes. Now, for the most part this year, my cherry tomatoes are tried and true. I've grown, I think, all but one of these at least once before. So I'll just share with you what I'm growing, what I like about them, and there is one new variety that I'm trying as well. The first variety that I'm growing is the red Centiflor tomato. This one I grew last year for the very first time. We really enjoyed it. It produced really well for us. It had a good flavor. It was just a good classic red cherry tomato, so I'm growing that one again this year. Next is the Sun Gold. This, in my opinion, is the best cherry tomato ever. It is so good. It has a perfect, really rich, really well-balanced flavor. It's really sweet, but it's got enough tanginess to balance out that sweetness that I really enjoy it. It produces really well for us. It's really reliable. I mean, I don't have anything bad to say about it. I really enjoy it. I've grown this one many, many years, and it's never done poorly for me. So that one I will be growing again. Next is this really similar variety, which is the Sun Gold Select. The one thing that I don't like as much about the Sun Gold is that it is a hybrid tomato. Now, as far as growing the tomato, that doesn't really matter. In fact, hybrids often are healthier, yield more, perform better overall. But the downside of hybrids is that if you're hoping to save seeds, and you save seed from, I mean, not just a hybrid tomato, from any hybrid, you don't really know what kind of plant those seeds are going to produce. It could be similar to what you originally grew, or it could be very different. So because I am trying to get more into seed saving, I wanted to also grow this Sun Gold Select. This is a variety that has been selected over many generations out from the original Sun Gold tomato. The genetics have been stabilized. So this is a variety that I can save the seeds from and they'll grow true to type. So for the past few years, I think this is going to be my third year growing both the Sun Gold and the Sun Gold Select side by side. I have not really found any significant difference as far as flavor or fruit quality or anything like that. So I'm just going to continue comparing them, and I like to have the Sun Gold Select in my garden so that I can save seeds from this tomato if I decide to. The next variety is the Berry's Crazy Cherry. Last year I grew this tomato for the very first time. I was really impressed with it. I could not believe how much this tomato yielded. I mean, this picture here is not much of an exaggeration. Really, the plants yielded huge clusters of these fruits. They were really good. They were really sweet. I prefer the flavor of the Sun Gold because I think the Sun Gold has a little bit more acidity to balance out that sweetness. But the flavor of the Berry's Crazy Cherry was still really good. And I do really like to have a variety in my tomato basket of both colors and flavors. So having that little bit milder, sweeter flavor from the Berry's Crazy Cherry, I really did enjoy that. Plus, it's a color that I didn't have yet. You can see it's kind of a pale yellow. The Sun Gold is more of a deep golden yellow-orange color. So the Berry's Crazy Cherry added some of that pale yellow that I didn't have yet. Next is the Matt's Wild Cherry. This tomato is another tried and true for me. I've grown this one many years. It has really good flavor. It yields really well. This produces really small red cherry tomatoes. They're not quite as small as, say, a currant tomato. So if you've grown currant tomatoes before, you know that those have those really tiny little fruits. These are bigger than that, but they're still smaller than most cherry tomatoes. The one negative I find with the Matt's Wild Cherry is that they do tend to crack really easily. Now, of course, the flip side of that, if you have a tomato that cracks really easily, most likely that's because it has a really tender skin, which makes the eating experience really good. But I will say, with the Matt's Wild Cherry, I am really careful if I'm expecting a big rain. I like to go out and harvest all those tomatoes before rain because, of course, rain makes tomatoes more prone to cracking. But this is definitely a tried and true. This is actually my daughter's favorite cherry tomato, so I will be growing that one every year. So now we move from my daughter's favorite cherry tomato to my son's favorite, and this is the black cherry. This cherry tomato is really good. I find that it doesn't yield quite as much as a lot of the other cherry tomatoes that I'm growing, but it does yield really large fruits, and it still yields decently well. They're a little bit larger, as I mentioned. They're a really dark, rich, purpley brown color. I do really enjoy them. They have great flavor. Those are going to be in my garden every year as well. Next, I have the Rosella tomato. Now you can see this one has a picture. This is about the same color as the black cherry that I just mentioned before. These are a little bit smaller than the black cherry. They're more of a classic cherry tomato size. I grew this tomato for the first time last year. We did really enjoy it. It had really good flavor. I will say I think I slightly prefer the flavor of the black cherry, which is fairly similar to this, but I think it had a little bit richer flavor. These were still really good, and we just really enjoyed them, so we're going to continue growing them. Now, finally, this is the one variety that's new to me. This is the Hartman's Yellow Gooseberry Tomato. This tomato, at the end of last season, I purchased the grab bag of seeds from M.I. Gardener. At the end of each season, they do basically a grab bag sale because you are only allowed to sell seeds for 1 year. So at the end of the season, often companies are left with a lot of seed packets left that they're not going to be able to sell the following year, but those seeds are still perfectly viable. So a lot of times they will have a big end of season clearance sale. So that's when I got these from My Gardener. I got the grab bag, so these were a complete surprise, but they look like a really fun, delicious cherry tomato, so I'm excited to try these this year. As I said, this is a new variety, so if you have any experience growing these, I would love to hear how they did for you. Next, we are going to move into my biggest category of tomatoes, which is slicer tomatoes. Now, you can see I've got a nice thick stack of seed packets here, so we've got lots of varieties that I'm really excited to try this year. Similarly here, I have a mix, I think they're probably pretty evenly split, of varieties that I have grown before, either tried and true or that I've grown once or twice, and varieties that are completely new to me. So I'm just going to share these with you. If I've grown them before, I'll share my experience with them. So the Climbing Triple Crop Tomato. I've grown this one the past 2 seasons. I've been really happy with it. It produces really large tomato fruits. They're big, bright red. They were really like perfect looking tomatoes. It produced really well for me, so I was happy with them. Just a good classic all around tomato. Next is the Cindy's West Virginia tomato. I grew this tomato for the first time last season on the recommendation of a local gardening friend. And I found the plant at a local nursery. So I purchased the plant and grew it, and then I did save the seeds. This is an heirloom variety, so I can save the seeds and know that it's going to come true to type. Now, I will say, I did not take any measures to prevent cross-pollination. I just saved seeds from the first fruit that I harvested. So it is possible that these seeds could be cross-pollinated. Tomatoes don't tend to cross-pollinate as easily as a lot of other garden vegetables, so my chances are pretty good that these seeds are not cross-pollinated, but as I said, it is a possibility. So I'm going to grow them anyway, and we're going to see how they do. Hopefully, I get some pure Cindy's West Virginia tomatoes. And I do plan to be a little bit more careful this coming season, assuming that the plants grow true to type. I do want to take some measures to prevent cross-pollination and save seeds again this coming year. Next, I have the Azoichka tomato. I grew this tomato last season for the first time. I actually got this seed in the previous season's My Gardener seed haul. This tomato was not on my radar at all, but since I got the seed packet, I figured I would give it a try. I was really happy with it. I think I grew 2 plants of this last season, and they were really prolific. They were really nice, medium-sized, true yellow tomato fruits. You know, a lot of times you see tomatoes advertised as yellow tomatoes, but they're really a golden orange, you know, which is lovely. I'm not complaining about that. But these are a true yellow. I want to say they're actually a little bit yellower than they really look on the seed packet there, but I did really enjoy them. Kind of similarly to the Berries Crazy Cherry, I found that the flavor was a little more mild than what I personally prefer. That is often the case with yellow tomatoes. They tend to have a little bit milder, sweeter flavor, which can be a positive or a negative depending on personal preference. You know, flavor is very subjective. So the type of tomato that you prefer may be very different from the type of tomato that I prefer. I did still really enjoy these. I liked to chop them up and mix them with some other varieties of tomatoes just for a big variety of colors, and I found that the flavors melded really well together that way too. Next is my favorite slicer tomato, and that is the Cherokee Purple. The Cherokee Purple I have grown many years. It is really reliable for me. It yields really well for an heirloom tomato. It's that same deep, rich purple color. It's got a really rich flavor. I really enjoy it. Just everything about this tomato I love. I will say, I know I have said that this is a tried and true. Last season, it did not do well for me. I've grown this many years, so one season of not doing well weighed against many seasons of being really reliable. I still will continue to grow this one, and I still really enjoy it. I'm not sure if it was a coincidence or not, but I did notice that last season, all of my darker tomatoes seemed to struggle. I had a couple other of the really dark tomato types, and none of them really did well. So as I said, that could just be a coincidence, or maybe there was some sort of environmental factor that just for some reason didn't agree with the black or purple tomatoes. But I'm definitely growing that one again this year, and we're hoping for better success this year. Next, I have the Weaver's Black Brandywine tomato. I grew this one last year for the first time, and this was actually one of the tomato varieties that I mentioned alongside the Cherokee Purple that didn't really perform well. But as I said, my classic Cherokee Purple didn't perform well, so I don't know if it was something environmental. So I'm definitely giving this Black Brandywine another shot. I know when you hear that a tomato variety is really reliable and does really well consistently, you do have to take into account individual growing conditions. There are many tomatoes that have been really highly recommended to me by people in different growing conditions that I tried and they just really didn't do well for me because everyone is growing in a really different environment. So that is why when my local friend recommended the Cindy's West Virginia tomato, I took that recommendation really seriously because he's local and growing in really similar conditions to me. While people growing across the country are going to have very different environmental situations they're dealing with, and different tomatoes might perform differently. So all that being said, I'm going to try the Weaver's Black Brandywine again this coming year, and I'm going to hope for better results this year. I will say, though, I only harvested a couple fruits off this plant last year. The few fruits that I did harvest were really good. The plant just wasn't very healthy and didn't yield a lot. but we are going to hope for better conditions this year. Next, I have this tomato, which is pronounced many different ways. Dr. Weish's, Dr. Witchy's, I am not really sure how to pronounce it, but you can see that there. This tomato is really delicious. This plant produces really big, meaty, kind of golden, orange, yellow tomatoes. I really enjoy them. I will say this plant doesn't produce as much as a lot of these other varieties. So because of that, I'm not going to allocate a lot of garden space to it, but I will probably grow 1 or 2 plants of this just because I really do enjoy the flavor. Next, I have the Castelluto Genovese tomato. As you can see, it's a really beautiful tomato. This is a fluted tomato. It's kind of a flattened tomato, which I will say is probably the one slight negative about this tomato is that the fruits are a little bit flattened. So you can see these beautiful slices here. Each tomato doesn't really have that many slices because they are kind of flattened. But I do think that they're really beautiful. The flavor is really rich and delicious. This tomato plant has always yielded really well for me. Some years it actually has been slightly more prone to blossom end rot than a lot of other tomatoes that have grown. So I guess that would be a second slight negative. But despite that, it is generally really reliable, yields well, and has great flavor. So I'm going to continue to grow that one. Next, I have the persimmon tomato. This tomato was also in my Am I Gardener seed haul, or seed grab bag. I have never grown this tomato before. I know nothing about it besides what it says on the seed packet, but it looks really good and I wanted to give it a try. So if you're familiar at all with the persimmon tomato, I would love to hear your experience in the comments. Next, I have the pink oxheart tomato. This tomato I grew last year for the first time. This was again in my previous season's Am I Gardener grab bag. So since I got this, I decided to give it a try. I found that it was really prolific. It yielded really well, had lots of great tomatoes. I found that the tomatoes were a little bit on the drier side, which is a great thing if you're planning on making sauce or something like that. You know, it was kind of more similar to a sauce tomato in texture than a slicing tomato, but I found that it worked really. I didn't actually make any sauce out of it, but just based on the texture, I'm sure it would work well for that. But we used it either as slicing tomato or in salsa, things like that, and it did really well for us in all of those applications. So I will be growing it again this year. Next, I have 2 hybrid tomatoes. I think with the exception of the Sun Gold tomato, I think every tomato that I've shown you so far is either an heirloom or an open pollinated tomato, and heirlooms are also open pollinated tomatoes. I could be wrong, there may be something that I'm missing there, but I think that those are all open pollinated. But I did want to experiment with growing a couple hybrids this year. What I tend to find in my garden is that my tomatoes all start off really strong, yield really well, they're just doing great. But by the end of the season, they all tend to get some sort of disease, which cuts my season short. I obviously am trying to avoid that. Hybrids, as I mentioned, do tend to be more disease resistant. So because of that, I wanted to try growing a couple in my garden. My garden will still be, and will probably always be, primarily heirlooms because they do have the best flavor by far. But I wanted to extend the garden season by growing a couple hybrids, so I have 2 hybrids I'm adding to my garden this year. I did get recommendations from some of you and also from some people in a local gardening group. So based on those recommendations, I have 2 hybrids that I'm trying. The first is the Lemon Boy Plus. Now this is a medium-sized yellow tomato. It's supposed to be really good. It's supposed to yield really well and have really good flavor. So I wanted to give that one a try. If you have any experience growing that, I would love to hear from you. Specifically, I would love to hear from you on both that one and the next one, how disease resistant they were compared to other tomatoes in your garden. Next, I have the Defiant hybrid tomato. This is a medium-sized red tomato hybrid. Similarly to the Lemon Boy Plus, it got great reviews for both flavor, disease resistance, yield, all of those things. So I'm really excited to try that one too. Next, I have the Black from Tula tomato. I did mention that I have a weakness for those dark purple brown tomatoes. They just have such a good flavor to me. And this is one that I hadn't tried. So you know, if I haven't tried it, that means it needs to be tried. So I got this Black from Tula. I will be trying that one out this year. I would love to hear any experiences that you have with that tomato. Next, I'm sure I'm going to butcher this name, Sart Ralois. I don't think that's how it's pronounced. but that's how it looks like it's spelled to me, so that's my guess. This tomato is obviously really beautiful. As I said, was hoping to cut down my tomato varieties this year and focus on a few tomatoes that were tried and true and yielded really well. As you can see, that did not happen. This tomato just won me over. It's really beautiful, had great reviews. I just really wanted to try it. You know, I've grown a few tomatoes before that get the this purple coloring on the top, but I've never grown one that was yellow and had that purple coloring. So I'm really excited to give this one a try. Next, I have the Thorburns Terracotta. As you can see, this is a really unique sort of orange-brown color. This tomato I've heard great things about this tomato. I actually posted a seed haul towards the beginning of this year where I shared, among many other seeds, that I got these seeds. And several of you commented and said that you love this tomato and it's really good. So I'm so excited to try it. If you have any experience with this tomato or any of the others that I've mentioned, again, I would love to hear that. Next, I have the Vintage Wine Tomato, and look how beautiful and striped that tomato is. This tomato was not on my radar at all, but I knew I wanted to place an order with M.I. Gardener. So as I was browsing the website, I saw this tomato and I tried to ignore it because I was already at my tomato variety max, but I could not ignore it. So I ended up purchasing this tomato. We're going to give this one a try this year. It sounds from the description like it has great flavor, looks like just an all-around great tomato, and it's so beautiful. So giving that one a try. Next, this one is a similar situation, the Ukrainian purple tomato. I thought this tomato was just so pretty and fun and unique. It's got that sort of plum-shaped tomato and that deep purple color. So I had to give this one a try too. This one also got great reviews and I'm really excited to try it. Again, this one is also new to me. Now this tomato, this is the final variety, the Wisconsin 55. I grew this tomato for the first time this past season. I really enjoyed it. This one was not on my radar at all either. I also got this one in an M.I. Gardener grab bag and, you know, I got it, so I had to try it. I was really surprised in a really good way about how good this tomato was. The flavor was really good, but what really wowed me about this tomato was the production. So it produced more than pretty much any other slicer tomato in my garden. It was really reliable. The tomatoes were, you know, just like perfect tomatoes. And I really enjoyed this for things like making bruschetta, for making roasted tomato salsa, just slicing it up. I really enjoyed this, so I'm really excited to grow it again this year. So that was my pared down tomato variety list. I know I kind of say pared down in quotes because, as you can see, I'm still growing lots of tomato varieties. I'm really excited to give these a try. If you have other tried and true tomato varieties that you want to recommend, I would love to hear that too. I look forward to growing with you this season. I can't wait to start these tomato seeds. It's really just going to be a few weeks till it's time to start tomato seeds, and I can't wait. So I hope you will join me again to start seeds together. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you're having a great day, and I can't wait to see you soon. I'll see you next time.